Hi there. I'm Scott Brennan, and I am speaking to you from the holy island of Lindisfarne. And today I've got the privilege to be with Esther Marie and Sandy, who will introduce themselves in a minute. But maybe you could start, Esther Marie. Tell us where you are, and then we'll go to Sandy.
Okay. I am in Albuquerque, New Mexico, which is in the southwest of the United States.
Albuquerque. It's such a great name, that, isn't it?
It is. It's hard to spell, though.
Yeah, there's a Q in there somewhere, isn't there?
Two of them,
Two
yes.
Qs. And what about you, Sandy? Where are you?
I am in Charleston, South Carolina, on the East Coast in the South.
Wonderful. And all of us have an opportunity to serve the community of Aidan and Hilda as guardians, myself in the UK and these guys in the States. And really the purpose of this recording is to celebrate the fact that Aidan and Hilda is coming up to a 30-year anniversary. And so we thought it'd be great to have the US Guardians give us a little bit of background, a little bit of story of where things are. So Esther Marie, shall we start with you? Your connection to the community has been a little bit longer. Maybe what's some of the origin story for you?
Well, I heard about the community when my husband and I were in Scotland, and we went to Lindisfarne as a day trip, and we met Ray Simpson there, and we bought a couple of his books and then took them back with us and started reading. I took my Explorer vows in 2003, and fortunately I live close to the founding guardian. Sorry, my dog. Because he lives in Colorado, and he was involved in the community in the early days. And so when the community first started, there were a lot of people that lived in the West. And my husband was an Episcopal priest at that time, and he had a parish, and we started a Celtic Eucharistic service on Sunday evenings. And I was involved in the music with that. And so we went up to Colorado for some community retreats and did music. And I think that in the very beginning, we were called the St. Aidan Trust. And it was founded as an educational nonprofit organization, which
so it's actually morphed a little bit then.
Yeah, well, actually, I think that's been foundational for me to realize what our mission is, because it's so easy to get distracted.
Yes, absolutely.
So that's been helpful. And I think we evolved a little bit differently than the UK, but because we have an extra vows, we have a Explorer and then Pilgrim and Voyager vows. And then when Paul Martin was the guardian, he added the Long Voyager vows. So in a way, it's more confusing, but we have a big geography to deal with. So that's why some of those things had worked.
And what was it, Esther Marie, about the community or that sort of way of life that attracted you in the first place?
Well, I was raised in a Christian home, and I was always very enthusiastic, but I found the faith I was raised in was it wasn't specific enough. It encouraged you to be perfect, but it didn't tell you how to be perfect.
Oh.
And so for me, the community was a very grace-filled, compassionate body to belong to, balancing out against the organized church. And I've always, I was an English literature major, and I always gravitated toward Tolkien and C.S. Lewis and Charles Williams. And so a lot of my formation in my faith was impacted by them. So the Celtic connection was there through
Wonderful.
literature.
Of course, Tolkien was a scholar of Anglo-Saxon, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And a Catholic, and I have since become a Catholic myself. So
wonderful. Sandy, what about you? What's some of your origin story?
I've known Russ Parker for must be almost 25 years now. And at some point he started talking about the community, and I went over in 2010 and did a retreat on Holy Island at the Open Gate, met Graham and Ruth and Carol and Ray, and said, wow, what is this community that has all of the streams that have fed my life for years? The sacramental, the evangelical justice, social justice issues, contemplative prayer, charismatic. It had everything in one stop. And I thought, wow, this is good. And then the way of life, I felt like that would be a place that could hold me. As I was approaching a time when I know my husband was going to get very sick and teeter between life and death for about 3 years. I felt like it was an anchor for me to be held, both in the practice of a way of life, but also in the community. And so in 2012, I took Voyager vows on St. Cuthbert's Island, and then came back here and finished up a degree. I was working on a doctorate and kind of transitioned a little bit out of the community, at least not as active. But then in the last few years, I came back to being more active in the community. But I did give retreats on Lindisfarne for a number of years. I went over almost every year as kind of a pilgrimage myself, and was very connected to the UK community, but not so much here in the States, again, because it's huge geography. So finally with Zoom, with COVID, we have been able to connect a lot better, as probably you all have too.
Yeah. Well, that's great. And what's interesting to hear is you've mentioned two particular themes that caught my attention. One was the kind of mission or foundations that drew you in, that sense of, a broad and welcoming and gracious community. And then the second thing, the relationships. It's amazing how often the name Ray Simpson comes up. That people connect with Ray, or someone like Russ Parker, or just these key individuals, which is great to hear. Perhaps let's think about then, if those were the origin stories and those were some of the foundation themes, what about, how is that affecting things now? How is the community developing in the current state of play? Esther Marie, do you want to address some of that?
Yeah, well, we've had some times in our community history where the leadership was, we had a guardian that died suddenly, and we had a hard time putting together a slate of guardians after that. But since I've been a guardian, we've worked on trying to improve connections within the community. One way we've done that is we have a monthly worship time, usually celebrating one of the saints or one of the passages in the year. And we have a very vital Igniting the Flame course. We have an Explorer guide in Paul Martin. And so we've been having opportunities to connect with each other 3 or 4 times a month, usually.
Wow.
And I think that that's really helped a lot. And it's given people who are new a better sense of what we're about.
Right.
And so that's one of the main things I think that's happening. We're also working on a handbook, which is, it's been tough going, but we use the UK handbook as a guide, and we're trying to really put things down on paper so that people can look and see what we're about in a more coherent fashion. So that's been important, I think.
And I think, you mentioned Paul. Paul's done a great job with the Facebook page. It's gathered a lot of interest, a lot of attention. Yes. I suppose that's what COVID has done. It's given us some online opportunities to connect.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Sandy, what about you in terms of things that are happening at the moment?
We continue to add people who are either friends or interested in some way. We've added in the last year, we've added, as far as I can tell, 8 explorers, 5 new pilgrims, and 4 voyagers. We have about 90, give or take, in North America. That includes Canada as well, that are on our rolls as either some level of membership.
Yeah.
So the community has expanded over the years. I think in the last 3 years since Esther Marie and I have been Guardian, we've really solidified. We've made a firm foundation. It was rocky, as she explained, and I think there's a lot going forward with the formation programs, the worship, really focusing on the way of life. We do have some small groups too that meet geographically. There's a few clustered throughout the United States, but they're small and they're very separated by great distances. We also have a website. We have, as you said, a Facebook page, Instagram. So we try to keep up, but we also try to reach out beyond us as well to let people know we're here. And a lot of people do come to us through the Facebook page.
Yeah.
It's just a friend on Facebook, and then they start inquiring, what is this? What are you doing? And then they start reading, and then they start, hey, I'd like to join, or when do you meet? And so that's drawn a lot of people in.
Yeah, that's great. I've actually had quite a few Americans come to Holy Island, and then they come to our prayer room, and then conversations happen, and they suddenly are drawn in, and then they're, as they go back to the States, they connect with that social media in various ways. So it's great to see, isn't it?
It is. We've also sponsored retreats. We've had retreats every few years. We had one 2 years ago near where I live in Charleston. Simon came over and spoke at that. Now we have one coming up in Albuquerque that we can't spell, but we're going to go there in November. And it looks like it's going to be a really good gathering. Our initial guardian, Jack Stapleton, plans to join us.
Wonderful.
And that's a real joy to see him back and involved a little bit.
That's fantastic. That's so good. And you've talked about how, there's a trajectory, how things are evolving, if you like. How do you see the future developing? Have you got particular hopes or things that you hope might happen? Sandy, why don't we start with you?
Sure. I'd love to see this handbook get done. We've been working on it for several years, especially the safeguarding piece of it. We've tried to be very careful with that and craft it for the United States.
Yeah.
I'd love to see us gather more in different ways, different venues, closer together, if we can, because we do have pockets of people in different parts of the United States that are relatively close, where they could maybe do something regionally. But we'd also really like to see this way of life take shape in churches, if possible. The other things are a couple of initiatives that are out there. One is a coffee pub, Aiden and Hilda's Coffee Pub, that's being founded here in Charleston by Elizabeth Bumpus. There's Border Ministry by Seth Clark, way down on the southern border of our country. There's some folks that are offering their homes as for travelers going through. Leah Grover, maybe you can explain that. Esther Marie, what she's doing with her group online.
Yeah, Leah is, she found out about us on Facebook, and she lives in Albuquerque. So we got together, and she has been involved in Native American ministry for a long time. And she has a college degree in anthropology. And so she is starting a women's story circle. And it's going to be on Zoom, and it's going to be women making short presentations based on scripture readings. So I'm scheduled to do one on a psalm July 2nd, which is the first meeting. And this is really exciting because it's very different than anything we have. And her friends, I think I may be the only member of the community who signed up for that first session to do anything. So it's going to be a chance for people to hear and learn a little bit more about each other and maybe about the community of Aiden and Hilda. And so I think that that's one of the things when I was before I became guardian, I think I was a little cloudy on exactly what this was. And I had made my long Voyager vows, but things have started to come into focus. And the issue of what are we doing has kind of clarified in my mind that we are offering people a way to live an authentic Christian life, but we're not here to feed the hungry. If God's calling you to do that, we can support you in that. But at first, when I was first guardian, I was getting all these messages from members of the community saying, why don't we have an outreach to children, or why aren't we feeding the hungry? And I felt like, well, I don't have any more time to do that. And then I really was able to work through that's not what we're about. We're about facilitating people to do the ministry God's called them to do. And that's really been helpful to me.
That's wonderful, because you've already talked about foundations, and now you're talking about focus.
Yeah.
And what I think what Community of Hilda has to offer is very important for this kind of 21st century post Christendom. And so being focused on that way of life and then empowering people to live it out is so key. I'm aware that we could talk forever, but we've got a limitation on our time. So I just want to say thank you to you both. I really appreciate you taking time to share with us. And this will be played, of course, at the annual gathering. So I'm sure we'll get feedback. So far, thank you so much, and we'll speak again.
Happy anniversary.